Hello, everyone. Welcome to the latest Power Up series from Top Step. I'm Ron Bro, CEO. Thank you for joining. Today, we're going to take a look at effective time billing practices in SuiteProjects Pro, formerly OpenAir. SuiteProjects Pro has the most flexible time billing options of any PSA. There are multiple configurations to handle any complex contract requirements. In today's Power Up, we will review these different setup options to accommodate all time billing practices. Let's take a look at SuiteProjects Pro billing rule options. So obviously, your billing rules are found under your financial tab, and then you can create a new billing rule or clone an existing billing rule. We're going to take a look at creating a new billing rule and examine some of the configuration options that we see customers benefit from. First and foremost, obviously, in a global economy, a lot of companies are now generating multi-currency. So obviously, your billing rules and your systems need to accommodate that. Obviously, OpenAir does that very well. The date range is a very powerful option if you are looking to have rates equated to a certain period, and then those rates could potentially change. What this allows you to do is be able to have rates for year one, create a second billing rule for year two, and then stack those billing rules. And that is one of the most powerful options within SuiteProjects Pro is being able to stack billing rules for different business cases. Dates are one of those options. We'll talk about some others as well. So where do we pull our rates from? Well, there's actually 4 different ways you can pull rates in OpenAir. Users is probably the one we see the least often because you would have to then name users, and then if users change, you have to come in and update the rate. And the administration and making sure that you always have the set of users that are putting time is a bit of a maintenance challenge. So we often recommend customers don't use users. However, there is a way that you can use users in a different way, and most of you won't have seen this. But we do have customers that say, I don't bill by service, I don't bill by job code, I can't use rate cards because I bill by a task. So each task that I'm doing within a project could have a separate billing rule, and more importantly, each person working on that task could have a separate billing rate. So how would we accommodate that sort of scenario? Well, there is a little known feature that you can enable in your account that allows you to set billing rates at task assignments. So in this account, I can then assign Sybil to this task and this assignment, and I can say on this particular task and at this assignment, Sybil is going to bill at a certain rate. And then when Sybil enters her time against this task, it will bill her time at this rate, depending on obviously currency and her time being approved. So this allows you really a lot of flexibility in being able to set rates not only down to the user, but down to the task assignment, which gives you, in my experience, a lot of flexibility. But a lot of customers don't need that level of flexibility. They are happy to do what the most common options we see are rate cards. So what are rate cards? So rate cards basically are a menu of job codes and rates. So for example, if we take a look here at a rate card, we can see our project managers bill at one rate, our consultants at another rate, et cetera. And so as I'm entering my time, and depending on my job code, I will bill at the rate coming from my job code in this rate card. And so that is very powerful too. But what if I am a project manager by default, but on this project, because of a lack of resources, I'm having to perform the role of a consultant? How would I then bill at the correct rate? So in that scenario, we can do job code overrides. You can do that within a booking. So I'm going to book Ron Bro to this task or project as a consultant for between these dates, or I can do it through a task assignment similarly. And that would then, when I put my time in, I'm inheriting the job code override for these task assignments or those bookings for this project. And then when my time is approved and run through, I pick up the rate for the consultant versus the rate for the project manager. So again, lots of flexibility and configurability. If your rate cards vary too much customer to customer, in other words, you don't have standard rates, every customer is a negotiation, and you do bill by job codes, then we often see this option where on each project, you would go in at the beginning of the setup of the project and you would set up your project job rates and then put your rates in here. So instead of, these could vary project to project, it could vary projects within a same customer possibly. But again, lots of different flexibility here to give you what you need to get the correct billing rates. And then lastly, services. So if you bill by service, in other words, if I'm doing configuration or consulting services versus managed services, I can use the service set at the task and then have the service then set the rate to which I am doing the work. And you can also have on users and services, you can also have default rates that you can use, or you can override those rates if you need to here in this area. If I'm giving a year-over-year increase to my customer, and let's say I want to do a 5% increase, but I'm using the same rates we used in a previous year, then instead of having to create a new rate card for each year, you could use a billing rate multiplier instead. So to represent a 0.5% discount, we can come in here and basically have this multiplier apply to however you're setting your billing rates here, so that you don't have to go in and set new job codes or other items here. You can just use the old one, set new dates for effectiveness, and then into multiplier. Also, if you are giving your customer a discount, you can also accomplish the same thing. Let's say I want to give this customer a 10% discount. I can do it in here and put a 0.9. So again, giving you a lot of options. This one I don't see very often. It doesn't typically happen in consulting professional service organizations, but it's rare, but you could do a day multiplier. And where you could see potentially is you bill double or time and a half on the weekends. And so that's what this would allow you to do is accommodate those scenarios. This one we do see a bit, and this one really comes to a lot of customers, especially in Europe, like to bill by the day. And if I bill 2 hours, then I went around that to 4 hours, and I went around that to basically create a half-day charge. If I do, 4 hours to 12 hours, anywhere in between there, it's going to round to 8 hours, and that would then create a daily charge. So you can use rounding rules to kind of achieve a daily billing scenario to basically accommodate those types of customers. The filtering. This is where you really can start to think about how can we have multiple time billing rules, or how could time billing rules interact with other types of rules? For example, let's say we have standard rates for all of our users on this project, but we have one user who's billing at a special rate. We could then go in and create a single rule filtered by that user and have the rate embedded for that user, and then a second rule that's not filtered for everyone else. And again, as long as you layer these rules properly, the first rule will pick up the filtered user, and then time will then go to the next rule for everyone else. Again, you could do the same for services as well. Phases and tasks give you the option to basically have a time and material section of your project that could be intermittent with a fixed fee part of your project. So you may have phases and tasks that you're going to bill hourly. You may have other phases and tasks that you're going to use milestone billing, and it's all within the same project. So we want to filter this billing rule to only point to the time and material portions of your project plan. So those are I would say the 4 that we most common see. Time type is another one. If you are, a lot of customers will pick overtime, regular time, and have the time type selection come from the timesheet. And you may want to charge more for overtime, then you charge for regular time, and then so again, having multiple billing rules to accommodate different rates for the different time types is another common configuration option. Rule caps, this is also very common. You may have a contract, T&M not to exceed. We see this especially when we're working with NetSuite sales orders, we can't bill over the sales order value for hours or dollars. So we can then use these overall caps and then we can also have a secondary billing rule if we want to process the over the cap hours, and so that we know we need to go get a change order and then process those, or we can hold off on anything over the cap by selecting these options. This adjust time entries to fit under the cap. What this means is if I'm putting 2 hours in and I've only got an hour left within the cap, it's going to split my time to 1 hour and 1 hour. So 1 hour will go under the cap and 1 hour will be over the cap. And that allows me to bill right up to the exact cap amount. The time period cap is really cool because I've seen a lot of this where, especially for managed services, TopStep does that with our managed services, where we'll bill a certain amount, we'll give a customer a certain amount of hours per month at a certain flat rate. So in that scenario, we would say for the month, you get X amount of hours, and we would have a $0 rate card for those hours, but would have a fixed fee billing rule that would bill the flat amount each month. When we exceed those hours, we would then kick into a next billing rule that would then have our over the cap rates that we would bill our customer for any overages in a period. So be able to use a combination of multiple time rules and fixed fee rules to accommodate that complex billing scenario. I mentioned earlier making sure that your billing rules are layered correctly, and this is how you can do that. If you have multiple time billing rules, you can order them here by marking which time rule flows after which. So really important if you are layering billing rules to make sure they are layered correctly. Charge description. So if you want to control the narrative of what the customer is going to see for the description on the time entries, you can go ahead and put a description. What that means is all times processed by this billing rule will inherit this description. This will override if descriptions are being used on the time entry level. So if I'm entering a description, if I don't put anything here, the time entry description will become the description on the charge, versus if I put something here, I will override that. And that basically is decided if you want, do you expose those notes and descriptions to your customer, or do you want to control the narrative so that you can see? POs can be used and assigned to any of the billing rules so that you're drawing down from a contract value and being able to see that balance across all the different billings, not just time. Obviously, we can set a service here that we can set based on what the work's being done. You can do a couple of things too. If you don't set a service, you can have whatever service comes through the time billing rule will basically determine the service for the charge that gets put outside of the time billing rule. And that's important because you may have multiple services within your work breakdown structure. We've talked about billing services by the hour. And so now you would use the time entry service. You would use this service if the time entry doesn't, but if the time entry does, it would override this service. If you want to force, no matter what the service is, but you want it all billed under a single service, then it's important to check this box because this allows you to force all the time entry, no matter whether it's a service or no service. You may not want to use services on your tasks, so the service may be blank when the time entry is entered, but we need a service on the back end so that we can assign that to charges so it hits the correct general ledger account. These other two fields here, these are just custom fields. These are custom segments in OpenAir, custom services that allow you to add additional options for adding more information to your charges. So if you're looking to add additional attributes to the charge for reporting purposes, you can create additional services and have those show up on the billing rules, and these would get appended to the charge and make sure you then have those for reporting purposes. So that's really going through the time billing rule and some of the critical components that we see. Again, lots of power in these rules. Haven't run into very many scenarios that a customer could not make some of these setup options work. So, it's been we do a lot of time and material billing, and we use these rules religiously, and they work for us. They work for our customers. Thank you for joining today's Power Up series. If you want to know more, please reach out to our website. You can also find us in LinkedIn. Thank you.